I just want to double check. Can everyone hear me? Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, can hear you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start the meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Grimsby. I'm going to start by introducing the committee members first and staff. So we have with us, I'll just have you wave for the camera here, member Dylan Bailey. Dylan. Danielle Beck. Hi, Danielle. Adam Mottershead. Adam. And myself, Kevin Antonidis, as chair. We have one absentee member, Herb Nobes. And then staff members, we have this evening Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning. Hey, Walter. And Michaela Bray, Assistant Secretary Treasurer. Michaela. So just a public announcement here before we start. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded
in progress.
This meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. So I'm just going to outline the procedures for everybody, and then we'll put you into the waiting room and call you in as each application is put forward on the agenda. So for the purpose of the Zoom meeting, all applicants will be placed in the meeting room before your application is heard. The purpose of the application, any correspondence that we've received will be heard, following which the applicant will then be given an opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable decision or conditions. Copies of the decisions can be or will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to anybody else who files a written request to Michaela. Any corporation, person, or public body has the right to appeal the decision, either it's the decision itself or conditions to the committee or to the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal or the OLT within 20 days of the date of the decision that's made here this evening. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the application being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. I know in the past it's kind of gotten back and forth a little bit between the applicant and the members, but please address the comments through the chair. And because we have a full agenda this evening, I'd just like to remind everybody, we're going to give everybody 5 minutes to speak. There's going to be back and forth and questions after. We won't include that in the 5 minutes, but if you can just keep your comments kind of concise and don't repeat yourself, it makes for a much better evening and we can get right to the point. You'll be given lots of opportunity, but if we can just leave the first presentation or when you first speak to limit it to 5 minutes. So agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. And all members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are in, subject to the applications. So first, I'd like to call for disclosure of any pecuniary interest. Do any members of the committee have a pecuniary interest in the matters before us? I see Danielle has her hand up. Danielle, just if you could just give the nature of it, which application.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not specifically a pecuniary interest. It's more of a possible perceived interest. I am friends with one of the applicants and their child for 401 Murray Street. So Nicole Phillips is, hi Nicole, her daughter Tanner and my daughter Savannah are very good friends. They attend school together. So not that there would be any monetary gain. I just don't want there to be any perceived conflict. So I think it would be in my best interest and everyone's best interest that I excuse myself for that application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? None, and I have none as well. Were there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment at all, Michaela? No? All right. So the first matter on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the members had a committee, or the members have had a chance to review them. Do we have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of March 15th, 2022? Adam? A seconder, Danielle? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any, was carried. Okay, so we've got 7 applications before us. So we're going to give Michaela a minute to put everybody into the waiting room, and then we'll deal with the first one, which is 14 Roslyn Avenue, A1722. So we'll give Michaela a minute just to get set up for the first one. Thank you. Okay, ready when you are.
Thank you, Kevin. The first application we have tonight is A1722 for 14 Rosslyn Avenue. These are minor variance applications to facilitate the construction of a 2-story single detached dwelling. The variances requested are to permit an interior side yard to the north, a setback of 1.4 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. To permit an interior side yard to the south, setback of 1.2 meters, whereas 1.8 is required. And to permit a lot coverage of 31%, whereas 25% is what's permitted. Here is the plan. This is the same one that was circulated on the notice. A elevation of the proposed dwelling. Aerial photography to show the context of the surrounding neighborhood. Imagery showing the existing conditions. And for correspondence, we received correspondence from the listed agencies, all of which have no objections to the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. I guess, Nick, are you here representing the owner? Did you wish
Yes, I
to add anything or expand on anything that was presented so far before we open it up to committee members?
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I'm obviously quite in favor of comments from staff. I think that we've tried to accommodate a new home on this lot within the reason of the existing zoning setbacks and with some minor modifications as we presented. I think as outlined by staff, it does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I think I agree with them 100%. And like I said, we're just trying to put a modest house on this lot so that it conforms to obviously the house to the north, which is just, or to the south, which was just recently rebuilt, and then continue. And I'm assuming, from what I understand, the street being rejuvenated in many cases, and so hopefully, will completely fit in. The setback, the variances, I think, are still in conformance as far as side yards with several of the other houses. I'm not sure, I didn't read here of a letter, but I have a letter of support from the neighbor at 16 Roslyn. When I spoke to her, she said it was sent through the portal, but I guess for some reason I don't see it on the agenda or see it in the correspondence on file. It's from Cindy Dugay, who resides at 16 Roslyn. And I'll just quickly say I've reviewed the building plans and the request for the variance. I do not have any issues with the variance, and I'm in support of the requested variances. And then sincerely, Cindy Dugay. So I think that, I think we've done a good job of fitting in a nice modest house. I mean, we're building a 2-story, but very subdued. So I think that it would gladly fit in with the neighborhood. I'm be happy to answer any questions of the committee, and of course, have the opportunity, if necessary, to speak again at the end.
Great. Thank you, Nick. I guess we should have that letter on file as well, if we don't already.
I'm assuming it is. If not, I can email it.
Okay.
Yeah, Dick, if you could email that to me after the meeting, I didn't receive it. So
Yeah,
that'd be great.
but
Thank
she said
you.
it was sent. Yeah, I mean, she just sent this to me now, but I heard it was sent last week. I'm not sure where it went.
Okay.
All right. Are there any questions from the committee members? No. And I see Steve is the owner. I take it. Right. He's on here. So
I'm not sure. He was supposed to be online. I guess he didn't get on or something.
I see his name on here. So I'm assuming he's not going to add anything other than what you've presented so far.
He may have, like I said, I saw he was struggling to get on before, but I'm not sure.
There he is. Steve, I don't know if you were going to add anything or not. Nick has summarized the application. We haven't had any members or questions from the committee members yet. So, we can't hear you, Steve.
Must be having problems.
Yeah. Try again.
Plans.
There's a little bit. Yeah. We can start to hear you. Okay, well, I'm gonna suggest that Nick summed it up enough, and there's no questions. Is there any members of the public that have asked to speak? I don't see anybody on here, so if not, then do I have a motion on the application as presented? Danielle, did you wish to elaborate on your motion or the reasons for your motions?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Motion.
I would like to move that the application be approved, that it does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, that the application is minor in nature, it meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and the construction of the new dwelling is definitely desirable and appropriate within the context of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder on that? Dylan? Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So there is a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
And Danielle, I'm going to move you to the waiting room.
Thank you.
All right. Next application is A1622 for 401 Murray Street. This is a minor variance to facilitate the construction of an addition to an existing single detached dwelling. 2 minor variances. First one is to permit an exterior side yard of 4.9 meters, where 6 meters is required. Second one is to permit a rear yard of 6 meters, whereas 8.735 meters is required. Here is a site plan showing where the proposed addition will be. It's the same one that was circulated on the notice. Aerial photography showing the context of the surrounding neighborhood. Imagery showing the exterior side yard, showing kind of where the proposed addition is. It's that carport area. And then we received correspondence from the listed agencies. A comment from Public Works. There are concerns about a parking encroachment into the public road allowance. They suggest that the addition be constructed 0.85 meters southerly than where proposed to accommodate the standard 5.75 meter driveway. All other agencies listed had no objections, and we received 2 letters of support, one from 51 Olive Street and one from 399 Murray Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Is the owner, Nicole, did you wish to speak on the application or have any comments regarding Public Works suggestion regarding moving it back a little bit to make the parking conform? I don't know if you heard that
I did. Yes, and when I did speak with them initially about it, they did say if I moved the parking a little bit more towards the south for that, or sorry, towards the west, that it would be okay because I'd be parked over far enough that it would not be on that line. If I move, if just, I think it was by almost about a foot if I added across on the foot, and then I'd be able to maintain the same so that I don't have to disturb any of the structure of the existing carport for that.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the committee members on this or the suggested change?
No, I do not have any questions for that.
Okay, I'm going to ask the committee member now. Adam, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a planning, does the 0.85 southerly movement address the issue with the parking in the right of way?
I can't hear you, Walter.
Sorry, I did it again.
It's only been 2 years using Zoom, but I know I do the same thing.
I know. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Yeah, the existing driveway, it's 3 cars wide essentially, and so the parking stalls at the westerly end, there are 2. If you look at the dimension that's on the plan, it's 5.5 meters by 5.75. So there's a spot at the west end of the parking area, existing driveway that conforms to the zoning bylaw, and it meets the requirement of 2 parking spaces for the detached home. So the other parking space is deficient, but it's not a required parking space. So that's why we didn't have any objections to the proposal as submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I guess there's only 3 of us. If not, then do we have a motion and the reasons for the motion by one of the members? With or without the conditions?
I would motion to approve with the condition of the 0.85, just to accommodate the driveway in.
So that would mean the addition would have to be pushed back?
It says the garage be constructed approximately 0.85 southerly to accommodate the driveway, 5.75 meter driveway apron.
Right. So that would mean that it would not line up. Now, will that change? So that would just push everything back 0.85, about 2 feet, a little more than 2 feet. Right? If I read you correctly.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Go
the reasons for is it meets the 4 tests, meets the intent of the official plan, zoning bylaw. It's minor and desirable for the development of the land.
Any further discussion? Or sorry, I should have a seconder first. Sorry, Dylan. Thank you. Any further discussion on that? No. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any? Was carried. So Nicole, it was approved subject to that condition from Public Works.
Thank you. So that just means I have to move move it 2 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So be able to just start the entrance 2 feet back so that the car would be able to pull up closer to the existing, or do I have to tear down the entire unit structure and push that back?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So I would have to move, so the carport is existing as standing, correct?
Yeah.
So when I close that in, if I just closed it in 2 feet further so that there was a bit of an overhang, would that be acceptable rather than removing the carport and rebuilding the carport 2 feet back?
Yeah.
That would be okay? 2 feet, push it in?
Yeah, the overhang can encroach.
Okay.
It's existing. The overhang's existing. The new wall would have to be back 0.85 meters, which is just over 2 feet.
Okay.
So if there's a garage door, then that garage door would have to be that much further back.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye now.
Kayla, the next one.
Okay, the next application we have is A1222 for 84 Olive Street. Now, this is a minor variance application to facilitate the construction of a new single detached dwelling. 4 variances requested. First one is to permit a front yard setback of 7.72 meters, whereas 7.85 is required. Next one is to permit an interior side yard to the west, a setback of 1.54 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. To legalize an existing driveway width of 12 meters at the street line, whereas 6 meters is permitted. And to permit a lot coverage of 31.9%, whereas 25% is what is permitted. Here is the plan of the proposed. It's the exact same one that was on the notice. A rendering of the proposed dwelling elevation. Aerial imagery to show the context of the neighborhood. The current conditions of the site, as well as the current driveway. And for correspondence, we received correspondence from the agencies listed on the screen, all of which had no objections. Thank you.
Thank you. Did the owner or the representative wish to add anything? Amit? I wasn't sure if you were going to speak on behalf of the owner or.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am the owner. I have nothing.
Oh, okay.
Just no, nothing really. I did the drawing quickly here, and hopefully, if you guys have any questions from my end, and feel free to ask away. That's really about it. If you guys have any questions yourself.
Sorry, I'm going to open it up to questions. It took me a second there. Okay, Dylan.
Yeah.
Dylan, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Mr. Chair, just a clarification for me. So there's an existing garage at the end of the long driveway, and will the new build, will it have an attached garage? Because I see it will meet up with the existing driveway, so I just wasn't sure. The house will have a garage. Maybe I didn't capture it right in the proposed drawing, but it will have a garage built in, like, as part of the structure.
Correct. So we're building the one right now, and you'll see it's 20 by 20 right here, and then the other garage is actually built within the house. Okay. So yeah, and that's why you have the other variance for the other driveway to go back towards the 20 by 20.
Okay, and that one at the very back is existing, correct?
Yeah, it's existing.
That's existing. Okay.
Yeah.
It is there already.
It's there already. We're in the phases of completing it basically, and I don't want to say it's completed. Richard has to come over and approve our vinyl siding. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Adam, I thought you had your hand up, or was I mistaken?
Sorry, it was just Daniel wasn't back in the meeting yet, so I wanted to bring attention to that.
Daniel's back. Did you catch the application, Danielle?
Through the chair, I was listening in through the YouTube video, so I did catch the presentation, so that's how I knew I was kind of missing out. So I hope through the chair to Michaela, I'm still eligible to vote on this, since I did hear the presentation and attend the site and everything. Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't catch that either. All of a sudden we got into it. It's like, oops.
Fair enough. And it was a really quick, and I was emailing everyone like, can someone get Michaela to let me back in? Thanks, guys. Sorry about that. I apologize
no problem.
to the applicants. I also have no questions, and I'm supportive of the application, just to get my 2 cents worth in since I have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem. I have a question for planning. Do you not have a concern with the width of this driveway? Like, I mean, it looks like a lot of pavement for a single family lot. And my only concern is these tend to be, with a 2020 by garage plus a garage in the house, they tend to be taken over by, auto repairs or things like that, and become a bit of a nuisance. A 3-car or 3 width driveway seems a little on the excessive side. I mean, this might be our chance to make it conform at least, or reduce it to maybe 2 car widths. I don't know. It's just my comment on it. It just seems to be pretty wide for a single family home.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, to answer your question, we didn't have any concerns, as it's an existing driveway. It's been there for some time now. We haven't received any complaints from any of the neighbors. So it appears to have been constructed originally to accommodate a recreational vehicle of some kind. Again, we haven't received any complaints about it, so we didn't see any need to eliminate it.
Okay, fair enough. Any other questions from the committee? If not, then there's nobody from the public, as I can see. So if not, do we have a motion with reasons on this application? If somebody would like to make that. Dylan? we also get your, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, be it resolved that submission A12-22 by Mitt Vogel for 84 Olive Street to permit a front yard setback of 7.72 meters, whereas 8.85 meters is required. Interior side yard setback of 1.54 meters, whereas 1.8 is required, and a lot coverage of 31.9 meters, whereas 25%, or sorry, 31.9, I believe it's supposed to be percent, whereas 25% is permitted, and to legalize an existing driveway width of 12 meters at street line, whereas 6 meters is permitted. The reasons for the decision is the variance is minor in nature. It's appropriate for the neighborhood and does meet the zoning bylaw and official plan.
Thank you. Any further discussion, or do I have a seconder? Sorry. Adam, thank you. Any further discussion? Danielle?
Yes, just to reflect that the resolution is updated, that it's 31.9%, not meters as per Dylan's correction. Thank you.
So noted. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So it was approved, subject to the 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you for attending. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay, so our next application is application A1522 for 489 Ridge Road West. This application is to facilitate the construction of an accessory building, being a garage. So there are 3 variances requested. The first is to permit a use projection 0.3 meters into a required minimum yard, whereas no more than 0.25 meters is permitted. To permit an accessory building lot coverage of 7.92%, whereas 5% is permitted, and to permit a total lot coverage of 16%, whereas 7.5% is permitted. So here is the proposed plan. It's the exact same one that was circulated on the notice. The green shows their proposed garage, and it's kind of overset on the existing garage that is going to be demolished. This is a cross-section of the proposed garage, just showing that overhang dimension. Here is the aerial photography of the area, just for context. For correspondence from the region of Niagara, they require a private sewage system review with the accompanying fee of $400. They're therefore imposing a condition that the applicant obtain approval from Niagara Region Planning and Development Services Department regarding the private sewage system review. And from the other agents listed, there were no objections. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Is the owner here, Jill and Stu? Did you wish to add anything or comment about the suggestion from the region on the condition?
Yeah, actually, there's a little bit of a concern with that. First of all, it's listed on the application as the erection of a new building. It's actually the replacement of a building, and that's why it's on the same footprint. It's a currently unserviced building, so for me to do anything with servicing with it obviously doesn't make any sense to me at this point. I spoke with a couple of people at the region. I talked to a Devin Haluka and a Phil Lambert about this because I had followed up after I was just advised by Michaela that, oh yeah, it's going to be another $400 for something that you weren't made aware of. So, I mean, that's a little upsetting when I we had a pre-meeting on January 28th, and there was no mention of this whatsoever. And present for the pre-meeting was both Walter and Adam, and we talked about what the fees would be before I even got started. And there was only really 3 fees, and that was the variance, the demolition permit, and then obviously the building permit. So here we are, and I spoke with some people at the region, and they said that, well, okay, you need to have this private sewer assessment done. And he said, being that you have a building in the center of your backyard that's still there, if you look at the site plan that was provided, it can't currently conform without the possible removal of that building. So here I am, because I won't have 5 meters away from any given building on the lot for a future septic. So had I been made aware of this from the word go, it may not have even happened. But like not being made aware of this back in January certainly has affected what's going on.
Okay, thank you. I find it a strange condition too, when, like you say, you're actually, if I understand it, you're reducing the footprint of what's there, right?
Yep.
I mean, it looks like you're reducing it, setting it back, and perhaps adjusting the sideline. So maybe, did they think it was a brand new structure or something to be put in the back of your yard that was never there before? Or, I mean, they get a copy of the notice, so I'm assuming they read it and look at it. But I just find that a strange request, nothing to do with an unserviced garage. It's not like
Yes.
you're putting 3 more bedrooms on your house, or, you know, finishing a basement and adding 3 bathrooms or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing to do with servicing. So I find it a weird request, to be honest, and not fair, to be quite honest. But anyways, that's my comment before I open it up to the rest of the committee. Danielle, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That actually was 2 of my questions you kind of answered, Stu, in your opening statement. Was when I came by, there was no structure there, so I wasn't too sure how we were. I understand now that it's a reconstruction, not a replacement, like the demolition has already occurred. And then I was asking if there's going to be any new fixtures in the new building. So does that including like washrooms, taps, any water basically going there that's going to need? Okay. So from what I understand, then, based on what you had described, is the region requires this study to assess an existing situation based on the existing shed and your existing septic location. Is that correct? It has really nothing to do with your new building, or is it the new building situation?
No, it has nothing to do with the new building.
Okay. I understand now. And then maybe to Walter, just because I'm not 100% familiar with the building code, is that because building code has been updated probably since the original installation of that septic bed or septic system, and the location of the shed and spatial separation or separation distances have increased since then, and that is why the region, maybe you can answer this, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but is that the reason why they're asking this now?
My understanding that, through you, Mr. Chair, is my understanding that they just needed to inspect the existing system. And maybe it might be helpful if Michaela actually read the correspondence from the region.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Michaela.
Yep, I can do that. I'll just pull it up.
Yeah, I have it open in front of me here. It speaks about based on.
Read it.
Okay, so I pulled up the correspondence that's in the agenda, and I'll just go through it quickly. So they note that they haven't received the review fee, and they still require the site inspection as it hasn't been completed for the property. It says, based on a review of the available aerial imagery, our private sewage system inspectors have identified potential concerns with respect to minimum setbacks and usable space requirements for the existing / future replacement septic system. And then they say, as such, it is requested that this minor variance application be deferred. However, they were okay with imposing a condition instead. Until a time that the applicant submits a detailed septic system design, which confirms that all septic requirements for the proposed development is achieved and a site inspection is completed.
Thank you. I have a question, I guess, another question for Jill and Stu. Have you had any issues with your septic? Like, what's triggering this? Is this because is this something new that the region's requesting? We've had variances in the rural areas before, even on Ridge Road, and we haven't had this request before. Is this something that they're new that they're adding, or is it because they're looking at aerial imagery and saying the massing looks too big for the lot?
Well, they had said to me that this is something that's quite common now, but I'd never heard of it, and it never came up in our pre-meeting about the undertaking. So in saying, for us to conform right now, to put it in perspective, I would need to have a plan designed for a new septic system with the removal of my shed in the middle of the backyard, which seems a little bit ridiculous when I'm trying to replace a shed that has fallen into disrepair. And these are the roadblocks I'm coming up against. Now, in saying that it's a replacement of a structure, would it not be reasonable to put this under like 413 of the bylaw to say, you know, replacement of buildings other than residential buildings, rather than this current path that we're going down?
Well, yeah, I'll ask Walter about that. It seems like he's reducing his footprint, but he's getting caught by the fact that it doesn't conform or didn't conform originally, right? But again, it seems to be weird that it's being triggered by a garage that has no fixtures in it, no water being proposed, or no basement being added, or anything like that, no washrooms being added. So it's almost like they haven't considered the specifics of the application. I don't know. I'm in favor of the application, the requested variance, but not the condition. Is my 2 cents worth. But Walter, I don't know if you had anything to add on that. What the rationale might be.
I can't really. It almost seems as though they didn't totally understand the nature of the application. It almost as if it was a new construction, and they wanted the applicants to justify, you know, the area that would be left over if a new septic location was required on the site. Like typically just to take a step back, if a new lot was to be created, the lot would have to be at least 1 acre in size. This lot is a ½ acre. So it's already undersized to begin with. And I'm assuming there's an existing septic. And a couple of the things that they probably want to check are to make sure that the existing septic is in good working condition. But they also note that if that septic was to fail and an alternative location was to be required on site, that's where they're running into problems. Where would it be located? And particularly given the location of the existing shed in the middle of the backyard. So I think that's the issue that they're having trouble with. Whether or not it's reasonable to require that of this application, particularly since the proposed building is substantially smaller than the existing building that was on the site that it's replacing. I don't know. That's I guess something for you guys to figure out. But in my estimation, that seems to be what it's all about.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Any questions from other questions from the committee members? If not, then do I have a motion on the application with or without the condition? Oh, sorry, Dylan.
Daniel.
It's Danielle.
It's
Sorry.
actually me. I
Danielle,
think they're
sorry.
trying to point to me. Thank you. Sorry, I think, I guess through the chair to the applicants, do you have a timeline as to, I mean, everybody right now says that they want to be in the ground. We have great weather and stuff like that, but realistically, do you have a timeline in which you would like to have the new building constructed?
Well, the intent would be this summer.
Okay.
I mean, like, we wouldn't have put in the application to do it 3 years from now. So,
Okay.
I mean, the other part that's a little bit concerning here, if I may, is that this private septic review is one thing. And in speaking with a couple fellows at the region, I would also have to supply a new design. And I said, well, a new design would include me removing the shed in the center of the backyard, which if it had to happen, then of course it would happen. But they said that isn't good enough. So I'm like, you just want me to redesign my septic? It's essentially before I do anything on my property, which is a little bit ludicrous. So, I mean, that's the end of. I'll get off my soapbox and thanks.
Thanks, Danielle. Do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get an idea from the applicant regarding timing, just because I'm kind of toying with the idea of putting a motion forward for deferral. I know that the region is okay with putting on a condition, and my reasoning for that is because if it's possible to have the owners, just because I was looking at the times, this email was just sent on April 14th, which was the Thursday before the long weekend. This is Tuesday now after the long weekend. Probably not a whole lot of time to go back and forth on this. I would like to be able to give the applicants an opportunity to go back and speak with the representatives from the region, maybe provide some additional information on the fact that the building's going smaller. It has no fixtures in it. Find out exactly what is required of this application that they're requesting for this private sewage system review, and get some more information, because I would hate to approve this and put it on as a condition and then have the applicant be responsible for a $400 application fee. Plus, I don't believe you can design your own septic design. You're going to have to retain an engineer. You're going to be looking at so many additional fees just to clear your conditions to implement this minor variance. So if we can flush out some of these details with the region in advance and then not have this condition, that's what I'm kind of hoping for. So it's kind of a time over money situation, and that's what I was trying to weigh. So a deferral would be time versus putting it on as an approval with a condition would be money, is what I'm kind of looking at. So that was what I was trying to get an idea of. And I think, in my opinion, a deferral might be the more appropriate way to go at this point in time, with the understanding that you have some correspondence with regional staff about this permit, what is required, maybe providing more information, and see if you can get this cleared up in advance of a rehearing.
So when I did speak to Phil Lambert at length at the region about this, it's exactly like you said, and I don't know if there's going to be any movement for it, but it's to the point that, well, my hands are tied. I have to do all this work with my septic to make a building smaller to replace one that's falling down on my property.
I would agree with you. I think it's a ridiculous condition at this time, given what's happening here is a reduction in a building. So I'd rather approve it without the condition at all, because I don't think you're going to get anywhere from the region, to be honest. I see them, like you say, they're just digging their heels in. This is our policy. This is what it is. You don't like it, don't build your thing or put the condition on. So that's my suggestion, but I know Adam's got his hand up, so I'll let him speak or you jumped around. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, actually, I was thinking along the same lines as Danielle, to actually defer this, and I'll go to the money situation, because if this review happens and there needs to be changes made to the actual variances, it would be improper for the applicant to come back but apply to the process again to change them if they had to be increased.
Dylan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just I must admit I'm tending to lean towards the suggestion made by Danielle and Adam. But to your point about potentially approving the variance without the condition from the region, I'm just wondering procedurally, how would that work? They would be able to the variance would be approved, but then the applicant would then, like, should the region decide to follow up with the applicant on their own separate from the variance, they would then need to battle it out with the region separate from the approval to go ahead with their build. Am I right on that one?
I'm going to let Walter's got his hand up, so I'll let him comment first before I take a stab
I'm
at
just
that
trying
one.
to sort of trying to understand deferral versus approving without the condition.
Yeah. Where's Walter? There he is. Walter?
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. The region would have, and again, going back to the cost, the region would have the, once they receive the notice of the decision without that condition that they asked for, they could potentially appeal it and cause maybe even more significant delay in cost to the applicant. So a solution like was suggested, a deferral, just to work it out. Although Phil Lambert, he's the manager of that department. So I don't know if you'll get any further. Maybe they don't have all the information. So, it's worth a shot to defer it and see if you can work something out. There would be no additional cost associated with rehearing the application, and that way you could potentially get it ironed out. But that may be to your point, Dylan, that may be the only recourse the region has, because there's no plumbing permit associated with the proposed building permit. So their only recourse may be to appeal the decision of the committee.
Thanks, Walter.
Which may be a significant issue for the applicant.
Right. Thanks, Walter. Jill or Stu, have you had any issues with your septic? In other words, is there any issue with your existing septic now?
No. It's ridiculous, for lack of a better way to put it. I'm looking to rebuild a shed that's falling down, that's unserviced, and now I'm going to be paying $400 for an inspection, and I'm going to have to pay an engineer to design a septic bed and also remove another building at the rear of my property. Like, this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I have no other way to put it. And on a final note, that correspondence that came back from the region was never supplied to me. I got it in these meeting minutes, and I found it in the meeting minutes that were sent out to everybody, but I was never supplied that information from the region about them saying hold off on proceeding with anything. So
your only contact with them was between the 14th and now then?
What's that?
So your only contact with them as soon as you saw this was between when you got these minutes or this agenda and now?
Yeah, I didn't talk to Mr. Morrison, is it? That Michaela had supplied me, because I had already spoken with Phil and Devin at the region. So, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do if I can't get the information back from the township that the region has been supplied either.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding we just received the correspondence on Thursday. Is that right, Michaela?
Yeah, from Alex. Through the chair. Alex just is my main contact. So anything that comes through Alex based on the septic review would have been just passed along to him from Devin or Phil or whoever is in that the septic area.
Right. So what I would suggest is that we could facilitate the meeting, Stu, between yourself and the region, and we'd have to do that anyway if we were to defer this application, and just put it on the next agenda next month. All you'd be losing is time. Maybe it's an issue of potentially just clearing the air, and then we could potentially proceed with a decision on this after everybody gets all the information. So I'd hate for a bad decision to be made based on somebody not having enough information or having information that's not complete.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, Danielle's got her hand up. Danielle.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Exactly, Mr. Basic, that's exactly what I'm thinking. We do host monthly meetings, and at this time, if appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to defer this application. Give you guys an opportunity to go back and speak with Devin, Paul, Alex, whomever, Tom, I don't know, there's been so many names thrown out now at the region. Anybody and everybody that you possibly can, in hopes that providing them more information, you can get a proper resolution. And basically, worst case scenario, they come back with the exact same information, and at least you can say that you've done all your due diligence in this. And then the committee can definitely make a more educated decision at that point in time. So, Mr. Chair, at this time, I'd like to motion for deferral for the applicants to consult with regional staff with respects to the, let me find the exact wording here, private sewage system review, and whether or not one is required. And I request that the application be heard again at the May hearing. I don't know the exact date offhand. So we have a set date for them to report back to us.
All right. Second.
Further to that,
Oh,
we'll facilitate the meeting.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Basic. So Stu, you'll also have town staff as well to help facilitate that conversation as well.
Sure.
Stu, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did actually, and I had brought it up a little bit earlier on this call, but is there any appetite to view this under 413 of the bylaw? And 413 is the
ask Walter
of buildings, and that's something that just kind of it's been pushed to the side, even though it's less gross square footage and it's a building in need of repair.
Walter?
Yeah, that only applies if the an act of God destroyed the building, or if the building was to be removed by order of the chief building official. Neither of which were the case, I'm presuming.
Well, but I mean, you could say rot or disrepair of a building is
yeah.
Okay, well,
there would have to be an order by the chief building official.
Okay, so by the sounds of things, I'll watch it fall down.
Has it been removed?
No, it hasn't been removed.
Well, it's still there. Okay.
Yeah, it's still there.
I thought Danielle said it was gone.
Danielle's motion to defer. A seconder on that? Adam? Any further discussion on the deferral request? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any? Was carried. So Walter, contact Walter or Michaela to set up a meeting with the region so we can push this forward or get this advanced, and then see you back in a month, hopefully, in the May meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for attending, and we'll see you next month.
That building must be in an extreme disrepair because I could not see any of it.
Okay, so now we have application number A1822 for 1 Manor Crescent. It's an application that would facilitate the installation of a swimming pool. 3 variances being requested. First one is to permit a swimming pool in the exterior side yard, whereas a swimming pool is permitted in the rear yard only. Another variance is, this is for a proposed cabana. It's permit an exterior side yard for an accessory building of 1.2 meters, whereas 6 meters is required. And again, on this cabana is to permit accessory building overhang eaves or gutter projection 0.4 meters into a required minimum yard, whereas a 0.25 meter projection is the maximum permitted. So here is the site plan that was submitted, same one that was circulated on the notice. This shows a aerial view of the site as well as the neighborhood for context. Just to note on this page at the rear of the lot, where there is a yellow band that is representing a storm easement. So here is the exterior side yard of the property. And just another view of the exterior side yard of the property. And for correspondence, so from Public Works, they just, they don't support that overhang encroachment into the easement that was highlighted on that aerial imagery. And from planning, there are no issues with the swimming pool being in the exterior side yard or that 0.5 meter eaves encroachment. However, there are some objections to the 1.2 meter setback rather than the 0.6 or the 6 meter setback from the exterior side yard. And from all the other agencies listed, they had no objections. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Scott, did you wish to elaborate on or comment on the conditions that were suggested or changes or objections?
No, I just wanted to, hi, everybody. I just wanted to comment. So the backyard or the technical backyard is basically a walkway to that side yard. So that acts as our backyard. So that's why we began all the planning in that area. And then we've kind of been adjusting as need be as we've been working with the town of Grimsby. And then also, I know for the structure, there was some concern about how that would look on Baker. It's not in the aerial there, but we have plans to put a row of cedars. The neighbor across the street has some cedars to kind of give him some privacy as a corner lot. So that's what we're planning doing once the project was complete.
All right, thank you. Now, just, I don't know if you've had any discussion with Public Works or if you've seen this objection. They're objecting to the overhang encroachment into the easement. So I take it there's a stormwater easement running in the backyard now, 3 meters, I'm assuming, in width. So they're objecting to that, obviously, is potentially impacting the ability to service that easement.
Okay.
Have you had any correspondence or talked to them about it, or are you aware?
Not at all. So I reviewed, I saw that at the end of whatever it was, the 8 or 9 pages today. So I caught the correspondence. That's the first time I've heard of that. And it was up until about 2 weeks ago that I knew of or learned about the easement in the first place. So we actually got my guy in and we kind of shifted the whole plan to move towards Manor to accommodate the easement. So, I mean, that's something that we can explore to shift it a little bit further if need be. But I know we are kind of tight at this point because I'm moving the front fence of the side yard forward kind of as far as we can to accommodate that. So not too sure at this point.
All right, Walter, did you have any comments or aware of what their request? So you've modified the plan then to accommodate that request to push.
Yeah,
the
so I have an
pool.
existing iron fence that comes along Baker and fronts Manor. And so we're actually going to adjust it, fit some new posts to kind of move it forward so that we can shift the entire project towards Manor to accommodate that easement, because I didn't even know that was there. It wasn't any when we purchased the land in any of the agreements that were signed. So that was kind of a shocker a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, we kind of shifted and worked with it. So I think we have a good plan moving forward.
Okay, any questions from the committee members? Danielle?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I
Through
didn't see
Mr.
you, Dylan.
Oh, sorry. I threw up my physical hand and not my
Yeah,
virtual hand.
I know, I don't see that little.
I'm too slow on the mouse. That's why. Sorry, I apologize. Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, if the plans are changing, I think it would be best to bring those back to committee for review because it may impact the variances. As like if Public Works isn't supportive of this encroachment, the cabana is being relocated, it may change the variance numbers. I'm fully supportive of a pool being located in an exterior side yard here. It makes sense based on the form of development and how the house is located on the property. But I do have also concerns with that encroachment and also with the reduced side yard setback, exterior side yard setback, as noted in the plan and comments. So if that cabana design is going to be changing, I think it's best to defer this application and come back with a proper redesign for us to review because it's going to change those variances. So we just haven't seen those plans at this time.
Dylan?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would support what Danielle has suggested. Also, I think, and perhaps it's just the way that it's worded, but if staff are not content with the 1.2 meters, then I would hope that there would be more discussion as to what they would be comfortable with. Because like when I read this, there's a big difference to me between 1.2 and 6. So are they going more towards 6? Does it need to be 2? Does it need to be 3? I mean, again, I could be reading this wrong, but I'd like perhaps more clarity on what it is that they wish, again, if things are changing as well as Danielle, hinted to, then I don't know if we can approve something right now based on some of the uncertainties that we have.
Anybody else? Scott, did you have any comments? So my understanding is you're suggesting that you can eliminate the eaves projection into the required yard of 0.4, or at least get it down to 0.25, which is allowed, and everything else would stay the same. So the pool would be the same. The structure would be pushed a little bit to the east.
Yeah, or we take back on kind of the size of it. Like
Right.
I could work
Cut
with
the size down. Yeah.
Like the short of it is, I had started with the town in September of 2021, and I put everything through. So it's for this whole project's for my son who has severe disabilities. So I contacted the town. I said, here's what I'm proposing to do. How does that look? Let me know if there's anything, because I can't afford any hangups because I'm going to move forward with ordering and all that kind of stuff. Everything was fine. And then in the final hour, just before, the guy that's doing the pool is actually doing it a favor because he has a family member with a disability as well. So he moved me ahead of all his guys. And then it was like, boom, we're hitting you with this. You can't do it at the side anymore. But I have like a total correspondence that everything was on the up and ups. I even did the locates prior to make sure that there'd be no hangups there. And then since that, it's just been delay after delay. So I would rather not defer again if it's just something, a quick fix or shift it over. At the end of the day, you can see by the side images, like in terms of the context of the neighborhood, my lot is impeccable. I keep it up. It looks fantastic all the time. So it's not going to be something that's going to be an eyesore. And I have the support, like all my neighbors know the situation with our family. So they're all supportive of anything that I do. So it's just a matter of kind of finalizing it. I'm willing to adjust as need be. So.
Yeah, and again, I'm with Danielle. I'm in support of a pool in this exterior side yard in this location, this particular corner lot. The 1.5 we don't have a problem with. The or the 1.2 down from 6 is just because of the circumstances. And you're basically asked to move the shed or reduce it by 0.15, so 15 centimeters, if I'm reading this right, to comply with that requirement. So you're going down from 0.4 to 0.25 for the eaves, right? So if you can reduce that, that eliminates that variance altogether. And the other two I'm in favor of. So I would agree. I wouldn't want to defer this for another month, just over 15 centimeters.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
But that's my 2 cents. Any other questions, Danielle?
Sorry, I think Walter might have been first, but I just want to clarify. Public Works says that they will not be supporting the overhang encroachment into the easement. So I think that's any overhang. It's not the additional 0.05 meter. It is any overhang. So they would have to remove the entire building, including roof overhang, 0.4 meter out of that easement. So that's 40 centimeters out of that easement, Mr. Chair. On top of the fact, planning is not supporting the 1.2 meter exterior side yard. So now you're moving a building 0.4 meters one way, plus an additional whatever planning and the applicant come up with that they can, if a variance is even supportable here for relief of this regulation for the exterior side yard. So now either the building size, the cabana, it's not a shed, the cabana is going to be either decreased in size or relocated, resulting in a change of variances, a removal of variances, or even the possibility of additional variances being added. So I don't think it's appropriate whatsoever to be approving this as it's been applied for, unless the applicant wants to completely remove the cabana variances, only proceed with the pool variance at this point in time and completely explore the cabana at another point in time going forward. If he wants to separate out the two, because it seems like the chair and Dylan so far we're in agreement with the location of the pool. And if we can get an approval for the pool location, at least the applicant then could proceed with the pool separately.
Walter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just it seemed like there was some confusion about what our position was in our memo. So I just want to provide some clarification there. The reason it was worded the way it was, there are a couple of things that came into play. The first thing is a lot of design work was being done, the day before the circulation had to get out. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to go back and forth, particularly with the cabana design. It's my opinion that the overhang into the easement can easily be eliminated. It's not necessary. So that's a simple one. But in terms of the setback from the exterior side yard, our comment was simply that there appears to be room to slide that proposed building a little bit closer to the house. And what we're suggesting is move the building over as close to the house as possible to maximize the setback from the street. That's the intent. Unfortunately, we didn't have an opportunity once the plan was circulated with the application. That really didn't give us an opportunity to make any suggestions to the applicant at the time. So again, time, from what I understand, time is of the essence in this particular case for the applicant. We would be willing to, live with wording that essentially says that the cabana should be moved further east so that it abuts the existing concrete patio.
Scott, would you have an issue with that? I mean, the only other suggestion would be to move this along in two halves, if it's possible, to approve the pool first and defer the cabana. That would be one option, is because we're all in agreement that the pool is in an appropriate location, and then the cabana can be dealt with separately. Or I would agree with Walter, remove the eaves overhang completely in the easement. I didn't catch that part, but I agree with that. And then to Walter's point, move it to the edge of the existing patio, but not further than, so many meters towards. I would have no problem if he's putting a cedar hedge along there and screening it from the road. I'd have no problem with it matching the edge of the pool, being 1.5 meters, being adequate enough given the circumstances here. But okay, that's my opinion. But
that I can have that done. That's absolutely. I'm totally willing to work with that.
So Danielle, you're shaking your head. You have your hand up about the split.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The applications cannot be partially deferred and then partially approved. Like that, you can't defer part of an application and approve part of an application. It either has to be an approval or denial or a full deferral.
Is that correct, Walter? Or Michaela? That's the first time I've heard of it. I don't know, but
through the chair,
I tell you, I don't have any.
I am not sure, but I know that the committee can impose conditions to their resolution. So if you're able to word it in such a way, I believe that would be allowed. I don't think you can split it in the way that Danielle is explaining, but I believe that through conditions, I'm sure it's okay to manipulate.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, well, Danielle.
Correct. And then shifting the proposed cabana closer to the dwelling. I'm just, again, cognizant of how close that cabana can go to the dwelling. I don't know if there's openings along the dwelling there. I don't know about spatial separation distances, fire code, building code issues that are going to come into play, and how close that they can be located. So I'm weary about changing a plan on the fly. That's my only caution.
Yeah, you have to take into account that a building permit will have to be submitted for the cabana. The building permit will be reviewed by the experts in the field in our building department, and they will ensure that it meets code requirements. So if there are any unprotected openings along that side of the building, then that's something that they'll have to take into account when issuing the building permit. So the size of the cabana obviously may have to change as a result of that. But I'd be willing to impose a condition of requiring the planting of cedars along the property line in order to mitigate the landscape impact, and that's our primary concern, because it appears as though a lot of the existing vegetation would have to have been removed in order to accommodate the new construction. So if a condition is imposed that the planting of cedars be put in place of the existing vegetation, we would be supportive of a setback that's in line, having a setback that's in line with the pool.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, just to summarize then, we would push the cabana back to align with the pool setback, remove the encroachment of the roof overhang, so that would require redesign of the cabana roof, so there would be no encroachment of the roof. So that would remove variance number 3. Increase the exterior side yard for the accessory building from 1.2 to 1.5 versus the 6, and keep variance number 1 as is, adding in a condition to plant a row of cedar hedges along the exterior side yard property line. Okay. Did you catch all that, Michaela? Or whomever else is writing?
I got
Yeah, I think I got it.
It's
Okay.
recorded. It's recorded.
It's
They check
recorded.
it.
We can
They'll
always
check
play
it
it
tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. I can get behind that. Thank you for the clarification in the back and forth dialogue. I appreciate your patience to the applicant.
So that was
on
a
that.
motion,
Thank you.
basically.
And
That was a long-winded motion. Do we need a seconder?
I can redo
And again,
it after. I wrote it down if needed.
And again, our apologies. The intent of the wording the memo the way we did was to sort of maybe generate some dialogue during the meeting, and hopefully we could come up with a reasonable solution here. That's the whole intent.
Understood. Thank you.
So did somebody like to second that motion? We'll read it back, or we'll have
I can redo it. Yeah. For
Dylan.
you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So basically, you want to just recap it, Danielle, with your reasons?
Correct. Yes. So to resolve that submission A1822, so I'm kind of going to do this all formally for everyone, for 1 Manor Crescent, to permit a swimming pool in the exterior side yard, whereas the swimming pool is permitted in the rear yard only. To permit an exterior side yard of an accessory building of 1.5
Noted.
meters,
Yep.
whereas 6 meters is required. And that would be it.
To permit
Just
no overhang, though.
We would just get rid of
The
that
overhang.
entire variance.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep. That's how I understood it. Correct?
Just get rid of variance number 3, period, to permit.
Correct.
No, or would we just be amending the overhang into the easement? I can't hear you, Walter. You're on mute. 2022.
Was there an easement or was there a variance required for the overhang into the easement?
No, but it was because Public Works was not supporting the encroachment of that.
That's right. You don't need to do anything about that because that's
So,
just.
so we would
Remove
just
it.
review,
Yes.
remove variance number 3.
Yeah, so when the building permit is submitted, that
Okay.
there will be no encroachment permitted at all. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so that removes variance number 3. So, Scott, that means then you have to redesign the roof so all your overhangs can be a maximum of 0.25, just so you understand, okay?
Or push it out of the way far enough that it's not in any side yard or easement area. But
No, it only can be 0.25. Doesn't matter about easements. The maximum encroachment is 0.25.
right, but none in the easement area.
None in the easement whatsoever.
Right. But then
Okay.
there's a condition on that.
Be approved with conditions that the applicant plant cedar hedges along the exterior side. And Walter, do we use property line or lot line?
Lot line.
Lot line, thank you. Just so I make sure we're being consistent with our languages. For the reasons that the variances are minor in nature, that the variance is appropriate for the development and use of the lands, and that the variances do meet the intent of the zoning bylaw and official plan.
Thank you.
Are
A
we
seconder.
caught?
I think we had a
think Dylan-
seconder.
yeah,
Dylan.
we had a
Dylan had
seconder,
seconder.
Dylan.
Right.
I
Any
was
further
just capping
discussion?
everything up.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Any further discussion? Yeah.
None. All those in favor of the variances as amended with conditions? Opposed, if any? Was carried. Okay, so it was approved subject to the 20-day appeal period, as you heard this evening with some amendments and conditions.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
What I would suggest you contact Paul Nickerson tomorrow morning with regard to what you can do with regard to your pool permit and when you can start excavating and whatnot.
Okay, great. Thanks, Walter.
All right. The next one then. 2 Livingston.
Our next application is 82621 for 2 Livingston Avenue. The application is a minor variance for the relief of a parking requirement for the purpose of a commercial building. The variance being requested is to permit a total of 21 parking spaces, whereas 23 parking spaces are required. And just to note, this application was deferred previously back in September 2021. So here is the plan submitted by the applicant. It's the same one that was circulated on the notice. Aerial view of the property, just showing the context of the surrounding neighborhood. Street imagery showing the current site conditions. And for correspondence, from Public Works, they note that the location of the bumper blocks shorten the required spatial length of the parking stalls. And Grimsby Power, they have no objections to the minor variance. However, they flag the concern that there's a lack of space for a pad-mounted transformer to provide electrical servicing to the proposed building. But they will further review this at the site plan stage of the application. And then from the remaining agencies, Planning, NPCA, Fire, and Heritage, there were no concerns with the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Was there any, was the owner or the representative here this evening that wished to outline or expand on the request and any comments regarding the correspondence that we have received? I'm not sure who's going to speak on that. Is it Laxman? Go ahead. You're on mute though, just so you know.
It should be Dax.
Dax?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
Oh, Dax, there he is.
yes, sir. So
Go ahead, Dax.
yeah, there is a proposed site plan where there is 21 parking we can able to fit in that planning, and there are two difference on the parking requirement, and then we applied for the minor variance.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee members at all? This was a referral or a deferral of a previous application where there was some question regarding the second, whether a second floor was going to be built. So you've amended the plan, as I understand it, to include a second floor. Any questions from the committee members first? Adam?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just maybe a question of planning, if they would know if there actually is a transformer pad needed, what would that typically take out in terms of parking?
Walter?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. It wouldn't necessarily take out any parking, depending on finding space on the site for it. But it's typically a site plan issue. There may need to be some minor adjustments made to the building, square footage, or something may need to be removed, but it can be done without parking being adjusted. To me, there appears to be, I'm trying to see which parking space number it is, but at the southwest corner of the parking lot, there appears to be sufficient room there to provide a transformer pad, but and still be out of the way of the loading space that's identified where the garbage receptacle enclosure is also. So, in my opinion, there is room. We haven't had an opportunity as a site plan committee to review the plans in detail, the most recent plans that have been submitted. So I don't think it'll be a problem, to be quite honest. I think we'll be able to locate a transformer pad on the site without any impact on the parking.
Thanks.
Thank you, Walter. Danielle?
Hi, yes, thank you. Through the chair, I'm trying to recall, when we heard this back in September, was it deferred or was a decision actually made on this? And this is a brand new application.
through the chair, it was deferred indefinitely.
Okay, thank you. Because I find no record of a decision being made. So the site plan did go to council, and then there was amendments made and some adjustments made.
Oh, the plan was sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The site plan was not at a point where it could be brought forward to council. We had suspended site plan review pending resolution of the variances. So so the discussions ensued with staff and the applicants since the last adjustment meeting, and which resulted in the plan that you see now. So so staff has had discussions with the applicants. We're satisfied with the plans now. Once we get a decision from the Committee of Adjustment, we will be able to commence our site plan review again.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that update. I was slightly confused in the staff report about that. With respects to the comments from Public Works about the bumper stops, they have concerns about that actually reducing the parking space length. From a zoning standpoint, I'm assuming the zoning bylaw does not take into account bumper stops for parking space lengths. Is there a concern from a planning standpoint on a vehicle? I mean, I think bumper stops are a great idea in most areas, especially when you have a walkway for pedestrians. But Walter, can you just provide comment on those concerns from Public Works?
Yeah, they're again, from a zoning perspective, they don't reduce the parking stall requirement. The intent is for the bumper blocks is to stop where the tires, how far the tires of the car can go, so that the bumper of the car doesn't hit a fence or encroach into a sidewalk. So it's something that we might want along the walkway along the south side of the plan also. We may want to add bumper blocks in order to enable the walkway to be maintained, maintain accessibility. So again, but the size of the bumper blocks can be adjusted. You can use rubber ones, you can use concrete ones, so that they don't actually prevent bumpers going over top of them. They're intended to give the driver, knowledge of, okay, you've gone far enough. Don't hit the fence.
That's what I was thinking, that they would be encouraged in a development like this.
It's not an issue from our perspective.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. That's all my comments. At the appropriate time, I'm supportive of this application as revised. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else from the committee before we open it up to other members that may be here? No? Okay, so I see an Amy Carlucci.
Yes, that's me.
Did you wish to comment on the application?
Yes.
Before you go, could we just get your name and address for the record?
Sure. My name's Amy Carlucci. Do you want my resident address or my commercial property address?
Commercial is fine.
It's 4 Livingston.
So you are, in relation to this, you would be immediately west?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So my only concern, I guess, would be about the parking spots is joining that people are going to end up parking on my side, because we're so close. Is there going to be a fence that will be on this property line?
Walter? Where's Walter? Walter? Can you address that or answer that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe a fence is identified along the northerly property line, and looking at the plan, there may be one along the westerly property line also, but one can be put in. But in terms of the number of parking spaces, we feel that the proposed number of parking spaces will be sufficient for the proposed uses. The parking requirement is based on multi-tenant building, which is 1 space for every 20 square meters, which is substantially more restrictive than, say, for retail uses, which is 28. So we feel that the proposed complement of parking is going to be adequate for the proposed uses that are proposed on the site.
So what would the uses be at on the, I guess above is going to be residential, I'm assuming?
No, it's all commercial.
It's all commercial? So what would the spaces be used for that you believe that there's enough parking spots?
Yeah, it's mostly retail and office, potentially on the second floor, and there is 1 takeout restaurant proposed.
Okay.
So the rate of parking that they're providing based on floor space is substantially more than what you have based on your floor space.
Yes, I believe so. That's the only concern I have, is that people, because of liability purposes, I don't want people parking on mine, and I'm sure he doesn't want mine parking on his, vice versa, right?
Yeah.
That's all I mean.
Yeah.
And my other concern would be for congestion coming off of Pier Street, especially his out and in is only on that street. Trying to take a left on Livingston or going towards Main Street is horrendous. Now, I can't imagine you're going to put, another retail space there. Is there any proposal for stop signs there, lights, or anything?
The region of Niagara, who's the road authority for Livingston Avenue and Street, they do not permit an entrance directly onto Livingston Avenue. So the reason there's an entrance only on Patton Street is because that's what the region requires.
Okay, but
In terms of the intersection of Patton and Main and Livingston,
Mhm.
That's something that's regularly monitored by the road authorities, and traffic counts are regularly taken. And whenever there's a warrant for stop signs or traffic lights, that's when it's flagged. So warrants are based on traffic volumes and pedestrian volumes and things like that, and access. You know, they take all kinds of things into account.
I know. I just because when I'm visiting my store there, just trying to take a left out of there is ridiculous. And the two lights just don't coordinate. I don't know why, but to be able to get out.
Right.
All right. Any further questions, Amy, or comments?
I think that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have a Nicole.
Hi.
Hi. Could you give us your name and address for the record?
Yeah, it's Nicole LaRue, and it's also for Livingston.
Okay.
Just to, like I was saying, I heard Danielle mention, and I read it as well. As of September 21st, I guess 25 were required, and I guess the space of the building was downsized so that it would then change to 21. Is that correct?
Yeah, the request now is from 23 down to 21. So 23 is required instead of 25 because of the size of the building, and now 21 is requested. So a reduction of 2 spaces out of 23.
Now, is the parking lot, is it going to be available to be entered on both sides or just the one street? And I believe it's Patton Street.
That's correct, only Patton.
So my concern is the spillover parking, because you do have a takeout restaurant there. And out of convenience, I know a lot of people, including a lot of us sitting here listening, would rather jump out in my parking lot and walk the 2 minutes than park in the back and walk around. So to reiterate what Ms. Carlucci was saying, I think maybe fencing might be something we need to look into just because of liability. I mean, that's just human nature. Everybody wants to do the quickest thing. And that's really a concern because that is where the takeout restaurant is.
Yeah, I just want everybody to note that there are entrances proposed from the proposed parking lot directly into the building.
Okay.
Right. So the parking spaces will be potentially directly adjacent to the proposed entrances to the units.
Okay, because I did see the seating area, but I didn't see the side parking. So as a takeout restaurant, it's going to be a very fast business, but it's going to be a very busy business.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the concerns we have due to that being on that corner. So is a fence something that Walter, I believe, or no, you're Walter.
Yeah, Walter.
Mr. Patel would be interested in pursuing?
Yeah, your voice is going down. Can you speak a little bit closer?
So she asked if you were considering a fence there along the west property line.
Yeah, for sure. We can talk regarding that. Or we are putting a curb over there as well, right? So whatever we can talk together, and then we can decide whatever they want.
Okay.
Nicole, I have a question for you. Which business do you run in that adjacent property then? Because I know there's several in there.
Oh, no, it'd be Paradise Pools.
Okay. Okay.
No, it's Paradise Pools I'm affiliated with.
Okay.
And that's why I'm here at the meeting. Just because we get busy in the summer and we're seasonal. So, I mean, we can't monitor our parking, but we definitely don't want to put our customers in a position where they can't use and utilize our parking.
Yeah.
So that's our only concern, really.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Questions or comments? I see iPhone, but I don't know if that's
He's Ravi.
Oh, okay. All right. Are there any questions, further questions from the committee members then? No, if not, then do I have a motion with reasons for or against? Somebody like to make that?
Well,
Danielle?
I can say I'm for it, but there has to be conditions, obviously, that as being neighbors, we would love to talk to them and just kind of, set something up neighborly.
Yeah, I get that, Nicole. I'm asking the committee members to make a formal motion. So
Well, if I could join the committee, I will.
we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Nicole's hired for the next.
Yeah, we're going to put your name forward in October, November after the election for a new committee member. Danielle, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I'm making a motion to approve the application. Be resolved submission A2621 for 2 Livingston Avenue to permit a total of 21 parking spaces, whereas 23 parking spaces are required. Be approved, that the variance is minor in nature, that the relief being requested to reduce the parking spaces is appropriate for the development of the lands, and that the variance does meet the intent of the zoning bylaw in the official plan. I caveat that with that Mr. Patel and the owners, please engage your neighboring residents to the west and to possibly be a good neighbor and work out some fencing details. And the only reason why, to Nicole and Amy, I'm not requesting that get put on as a condition today is just because it's not something that is necessarily before us for the Committee of Adjustment. And I do believe that it is more of a site planning matter that I think can be resolved between yourselves and the neighbors, Mr. Patel and such. So, Mr. Chair, that's my motion.
Okay, thank you. A seconder? Adam, any further discussion on this motion or this matter? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So it was approved, subject to the 20-day appeal period. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last application is A0922 Kelson Avenue.
All right, so our last application tonight will be application number A0922. This is for the southwest corner of South Service Road in Kelson Avenue North. This application is to facilitate the construction of 2 warehouse buildings on the subject property. And there are 2 variances being requested. The first is to permit a minimum yard abutting a residential use of 12.85 meters, whereas the minimum bylaw requirement is 70 meters. Second variance is to permit the minimum parking requirement of 628 spaces, which equates to 1 space per 105 square meters of gross floor area, whereas the minimum bylaw requirement is 738 spaces, which is equivalent to 1 per 90 square meters of gross floor area. And just to note, the application was deferred previously in February 2022. So just to recap part of the discussion that we had at the last meeting, this right now is a minor variance, and it's just to provide relief from the zoning bylaw. And then the application is also going to be subject to a site plan control. And council ultimately will be the approval authority for the site plan. So here is the site plan for the application. It's the same one that was included on the notice, showing building A and B. Just a zoomed in site plan showing building A and the proposed 12.89 meter setback from one of the residential uses. The applicants have also submitted a more detailed landscape plan. So here is just the landscape plan showing building A and in the relationship with the neighboring residential uses. Here are some of the cross sections, just further showing the landscaping proposed. And another cross section. Here is the aerial photography of the site and the surrounding neighborhood, just to show the site context. For correspondence received, planning has no objections to the proposed minor variance, but they request the condition to be imposed that the reduced parking requirement of 628 spaces be approved for a warehousing use only. From the finance department at the town, they request that the following condition be imposed. Payment of the balance of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, and any local improvement charges, if applicable, shall be paid to the municipality. The NPCA note that they have no objections to the minor variance. They do note that there is the presence of a spill area, but this is being reviewed as part of the active site plan application, and it will be continued to be reviewed throughout that whole process to ensure compliance with the NPCA policies. From Grimsby Power, Heritage, and Fire, they had no additional comments, and Heritage and Fire also have no objections. And we received a resident email from 255 Kelson Avenue North. I believe they're also in attendance today as a delegate. They stated concerns about the reducing the 70-meter setback, concerns regarding their property value, noise pollution, light pollution, the retaining walls, and the overall visual impact. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. So is the applicant or the owner's representative here like to make a presentation? I'm not sure who's going to speak first. It looks like a bunch of people on the line here. So you maybe raise your hand if you're representing the owner. Marcus?
Hi.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you, Michaela, for that quick presentation there. I just wanted to add a few notes with regards to the previous meeting we had back in February. We did receive verbal and written comments from the residents from the previous meeting regarding our minor variance application. I'm just going to break it down into 3 areas of discussion based on those comments. The first area being the nature of the land use. You know, the residents provided comments on the proposed use of the lands, which are, you know, generally intended for employment industrial uses. The long-term objective of these of the subject site and even the surrounding properties are for employment purposes as designated within the town's official plan and zoned also within the town's zoning bylaw. So the proposed use as shown on the site plan is permitted as of right. The proposed development does not require any official plan or zoning bylaw amendments, as it conforms with the OP policies and is also in keeping with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. I want to move forward to the second topic, which was the lack of notice and communication. Per the requests of the committee and town staff of the previous meeting, you know, the owners have been actively in contact and with the residences to discuss their voice concerns as per the previous hearing. Various residences actually responded, and the owner is currently scheduling further discussions with those residents, and is expected to have a meeting sometime next week with them to discuss those concerns. You know, communication is obviously very important in this situation, so we're going to make sure that the residents are communicated through the site plan approval process, just to ensure that the compatibility of the proposed use is achieved here. The third area of discussion I want to talk about is the compatibility. There were concerns regarding the compatibility as of right permitted use of the proposed industrial warehouse building to the existing residential buildings that are adjacent to the subject site. Based on those comments, the owner has also undertaken adjustments to the site plan to include additional measures just to address and to mitigate the impact of the proposed development. The noise consultant obviously has prepared that noise study, which recommended the 3.3 meter high noise wall along some of the residential properties that would, be impacted from the noise generated from the trucks that are traveling within and without the site. I just want to note those two properties that are adjacent to Building A. Through the noise study, it's noted that with the proposed Building A at its current location, those two properties won't be affected through a noise perspective. So it was recommended that no additional noise mitigation is required for those two properties, as the location of the Building A will shield those two properties from any noise generation from this proposed development. Also, there's further landscaping and berming that's been improved along those property lines of those two properties at 255 Kelson and 251 Kelson. We added additional planting beds and trees just to further screen those properties from the proposed development, and also suppress any further noise that may be generated from the development as well. Civil design accounts for all the water on site to be drained appropriately as to not increase and to reduce the current drainage in the area. Technical comments will obviously be addressed through our site plan application with the city, or with the town, sorry. We also want to note that, majority of the matters that were brought up per our last meeting were site plan related and should obviously not affect the approval of the minor variance application. The owner will continue to work with the town and residences through the ongoing site plan process, just to ensure that the development provides some sufficient compatibility to the existing residential uses. I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Anyone else speaking on behalf of the owner first? Then if not, I'll open it up first to the committee for questions, and then members of the public can speak or address the committee. Any committee member comments? I believe, were we all here for the first one, or Danielle, did you miss the first one? No, everybody was here, right?
No, I was in attendance.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
okay.
Chair.
Okay. Adam, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, question of planning is, this site had a site-specific exemption, I guess 174, I guess in 2002, it looks like, that set this distance at 70 meters. But what was the rationale behind that at the time?
Walter?
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. The rationale behind it was we, at the time, when the application to rezone property from a deferred industrial zone to an industrial zone or employment zone was considered, there was no knowledge of the types of uses that could potentially go on the site. So it could have been a manufacturing use, it could have been uses that generate a significant amount of noise. But now we know what the uses potentially are going to be. We see how the site is laid out. We see that where the potential noise generation is going to be, which is between the two buildings. So from that perspective, that's why we don't have a concern with the proposed setbacks that are proposed in the proposed site plan, as the buildings themselves, or Building A, will provide a significant amount of noise mitigation from the two properties halfway along Kelson Avenue, this stretch of Kelson Avenue, and a noise wall is proposed along the southeast corner of the site to protect the other dwellings that are located near the southerly end of this leg of Kelson Avenue. So it was primarily to address the noise issue and to protect the existing residences that were there at the time. Again, not knowing what the uses were. Now we know what the uses are and how the noise is going to be mitigated, and we have no objections from that perspective.
Okay, great, thanks. And actually, just a question to the applicant or the representative. warehouse, maybe it was mentioned in February, is it going to be a 24/7 operation?
Marcus?
I will defer that to Manish, which is also the owner.
Manish?
Oh, thank you very much. Through you, Chair. At this point, we don't have a tenant. However, we've done a number of developments through Ontario. 24/7 operations they're quite rare. And given the fact that the buildings have been oriented such that each cancels the noise out of each other, if there were a couple of trucks that came in, which again, it's quite rare, the noise has been mitigated to that effect. However, in general, for industrial warehouses, for facilities that are distribution facilities, 24-hour shipping is not a common occurrence. So I would not anticipate that. Absolutely not.
Thank you. Adam, any further questions? No? Anyone else from the committee first? No? All right, so we'll open up to members of the public then. Just remind you regarding the time, we did set a timer on the applicant. So just to be fair, we're going to set a timer for you for your main presentation. It doesn't limit the back and forth on the questions and so on after, but just be mindful of the time. So we'll start with Catherine Greenfield.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chair and the remainder of the council. My name is Catherine Greenfield. My husband, Ron Wormold, is beside me so that he can listen in on everything. As you read from my email, I do have concerns, and I appreciate that you guys all discussed the noise level that was going to be from the trucks. However, seeing as we already reside opposite a winery, we do have noise levels from ventilation systems and everything else like that. We also have light pollution and everything else like that, which I imagine security features of lights around the building would be designed within the project in itself. My biggest concern is still the distance and the fact that you want to be less than 70 meters off my western property line. You have a building height of 13.72 meters high. And as Michaela was able to give me a zoomed in clear image, it actually notes that you will be approximately 17 meters off my property line. I still find this very close, and I do not appreciate it at all in any way. I actually request that hopefully the council will follow the bylaw and maintain a 70-meter distance. My other concern is this development will depreciate the value of our house, and therefore I find it of no benefit to us at all. It is also currently impacting our quality of life and our mental health, because through all of this, we have been developing more anguish and stress that has been caused due to all these proceedings and everything surrounding it. Finally, several emails have been exchanged with the owners, particularly Manish and Nick, since we received their letter on March 25th. However, despite potential offering of dates and times, we have not yet been able to connect. And as I had stated back in February, I am a frontline healthcare worker. I work all shifts. I am not available during the daytime always. I work double shifts now due to short staffing natures. However, we are able to be reached via email, and we are happy to answer questions. That's basically all I have to say for starters, but I do have a question for Marcus with regards to your newly designed retaining wall, noise, and scenery. Am I to assume that below your main design, AA is supposed to be my property, 255?
Marcus? If that's
Yeah, so that AA section would be your property looking to the building A.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this correctly, am I to deduce that there will not be, from what I understood, when I hear the word retaining wall, I think of a 10-foot high concrete wall boxing me in. This looks like you're actually going to build the ground up And how is that going to affect me? Like flooding and oil runoff from your parking lots and everything?
Well, so in terms of drainage, the site's going to be appropriately drained to the stormwater facility that we have proposed on our site. So the drainage will be offset from the retaining wall into that storm facility. So I don't think any of the drainage will be occurring on your property.
Okay.
It'll be controlled on ours.
Okay, because your stormwater management is on the northern part of my property as well. So that also brings me another concern of, is it going to be deep enough? Are we going to be flooded? No one can predict Mother Nature, as we already saw this morning.
Yes, so we are working with the Niagara Region Conservation Authority, also with Public Works at the town to satisfy their requirements, and those sort of requirements address those sort of issues of flooding in those sort of natural events and things like that.
Okay, Ron, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask?
Just with the depreciation.
Yeah, we have a concern with the depreciation value of our house. Like, if we were looking to sell, say 5 years down the road after you have built this warehouse, there's probably no way I'm going to get the current value now. Then market prices are increasing. They're still increasing. So basically, by having, I'm sorry to say, an eyesore behind us, who's going to want to live looking at a warehouse from the east and the west? That's where I sit at.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. And for staying within the time limit. We also appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in the audience, or I say in the audience, but on the screen, that would like to speak? Oh, Clarence?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Clarence,
and Clarence, you're at which address again?
213 Kelson.
Okay,
I've
thank
got
you.
a greenhouse operation on the south end of the proposed development there. I loop around there. My son has a property right beside us, and then there's Trevor beside us as well. So overall, like we can't stop him from building, but coming that close to our properties, that's a concern of ours. That's one of the biggest things. Like, I have to keep it so far away from my property line. Why do these guys come along and can come that much closer to our property line? That's one of the only thing I've got concern. And my other concern is, as long as the drainage is proper, the water from both the three properties here always drained right through that field, right down to the service road. And it doesn't go across the road at all. It goes right down the road, right where they're building. So that's all I've got.
Thank you for those comments, Clarence. I see Trevor has his hand up. Trevor, could we just get your name and address for the record as well first before you start?
Yep, Trevor Goddard, 219. Kelson, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I gotta tag it in the end. I think a lot of the neighbors have voiced our concerns, but another one that has not actually been addressed yet is with respect to that wastewater pond or storm sewer pond. Are they doing anything to address odor coming from that pond? We had we've got a pond out behind us in the development off Highway 8 there, and until this year we haven't been able to sit outside in the summer without the stench of that water wafting over to us. Are they doing anything different with this wastewater pond?
Walter, I'm going to defer that to you or Marcus.
I don't know. I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. That's not really.
I could answer that question, and also if I need help from one of the owners, they could jump in. I believe the original intention was for a wet pond. However, the region actually suggested for us to move forward with a dry pond, which is something that the owner is actually considering and looking over through our site plan application. So One of the options would be to move forward with the dry pond so that issue with the odor won't occur.
So explain to me a dry pond, or for the benefit of all of us here, briefly, in 30 seconds or less.
I'll try my best. I'm not a civil engineer, but I believe obviously there is no water. It's more dry, and there's additional vegetation to control the flow of water. I'm not too sure, but I could definitely get back to you on that.
Yeah, I can answer that question. A dry pond is essentially as it sounds. It's a dry facility. There's no water in it. There's only water in the facility during significant storm events, and then it drains.
Gotcha.
And if I could just add to that, it's Manesh from Blackwood.
Hi, Manesh.
This is stormwater that's going into the pond. It is not wastewater.
Right.
So wastewater is going into the sanitary pipes that are being not pumped, but they're going by gravity into the sanitary system. It is not wastewater. So this is clean, well, relatively clean stormwater that then gets controlled and reintroduced into the water system once it's been cleaned and it's properly controlled for quantity and quality.
I actually kind of understood I shouldn't have said wastewater, but stormwater, but the same thing we had happen out behind us.
Right.
With stormwater.
Yeah, that's the first I've ever heard of that, Trevor. To be honest, I haven't heard of a storm pond smelling, but hey, that's
there are a lot of complaints about that one from the highway development. And then again, just kind of my last point is I'm still in agreement with my neighbors and stuff with respect to the proximity. I don't know why we would back away from having those buildings closer to our properties.
All right, thank you for that, Trevor. Anybody else? Am I missing anybody? Michaela? Paul? Brad? Where's Brad? Oh, Fiona? I see a Fiona. That's Brad? Okay, Brad, go ahead. Sorry, you're still on mute.
Hi, I'm getting a lesson from next to me.
No problem.
He
looks like a Fiona.
So
Can we
yes,
get your name and address too? Sorry.
It's Brad Paswisti, and I'm at 4091 Corey Road in Beamsville. I'm here on behalf of my mother at 251 Kelson.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was concerned a little bit about the retaining wall and how much water could be, or any drainage could be ending up on my mom's property and Catherine's, of course. Stormwater issues. I guess the main thing is I do have to make a meeting with Manesh to talk about some other things. I'm worried about things after the fact. When they get this permission to build, will there be any way of the town working with us to keep things running smoothly, to make sure that as per what's been put out there and agreed upon, like that things don't change and they don't change things their way? I would like to see definitely the space that 70 meters accepted. I don't know why. I think it took them a long time to draw up these drawings, and a long time this has been in the plans, and I don't know why at the last minute they're asking for this variance. I don't think it's very proper to do it this way. I think there's a lot of land there, and I think the 70 meters would be quite easy to take for the building to be that much further back, so that they still had a good sense of life there and all of the neighbors on that street.
Question.
Sorry, go ahead.
I have a quick question also in regards to the storm water runoff. So typically my understanding is storm water runoff can also come from parking lots. Anything that comes from a surface that goes into storm sewer is considered storm runoff. Am I correct or not correct on that one?
Correct.
Okay, so in regards to anything so the storm water is supposed to be going into a dry or wet area for
collection.
Right?
Collection, yeah.
Collection.
Right. So in regards to environmentally, which I always consider, and also in regards to the properties around this area. So anything that is runoff from this massive construction, which could be truck oil, vehicle oil, anything that is on the surface could be run off into one of these storm areas, dry or wet, which is, again, is an environmental issue, not only for the residents, but also in regards to just environmental issue overall for the area, which will eventually run into another service, which will end up going to another area, which probably end up being in the lake. So just that's my concern.
Yeah.
One of my concerns.
A way of holding on to it.
Yeah, and we hear you. Unfortunately, we're dealing with the variance request, right? Not the design of it, but I hear your comments.
I apologize, but there is more than just the variance to consider. Like, you can't just okay the variance and then not deal with all the other things that could be.
Well, this committee is only dealing with the setback issue. We're not, and the parking request, not the overall design. That's up to the town and the region. But go ahead. Finish your
again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for everyone for listening. I'm opposed to that variance for sure. So
okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Walter, you have your hand up.
Go here and put mute. Go to your thing. Go mute.
Where's Walter? There he is. Walter, you're still on mute. Sorry, Walter.
I lowered my hand. I thought I.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
But yes, just for everybody's benefit, the town is requiring that the stormwater management deal with not just quantity, but also the quality. So there will be quality control required for stormwater runoff for the site. That will have to be passed on site. And also for everybody's benefit, something we didn't address in our memo, but the zoning bylaw normally requires a minimum interior side yard of 4.5 meters for employment buildings next to the side lot line. So anywhere else in Grimsby, the requirement would be 4.5 meters, not 70 meters, just for everybody's benefit. In this particular case, as I stated previously, because it was such a large site, unknown what types of uses would be located on the site. That's why the 70 meter number was established specifically for this site. Now we know what the use is. It's going to be a warehouse facility essentially, and we know how to mitigate the noise. So initially it was intended that a 70 meter setback would do the trick. But now we realize that a 70 meter setback is not required to mitigate noise, that other measures, the buildings themselves, as well as other measures along the property line at the southeast corner of the site will do the trick in terms of mitigating the noise generated from the site, which is essentially from the truck loading areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience or the members of the public that wishes to speak? Michaela, have I missed anybody?
I don't believe so.
No? Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee members after hearing the residents' concerns and the issues that were raised? No, everybody's quiet. Oh, Adam, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just from listening from the residents, I see no objections whatsoever to the parking reduction, but like them, I'm in agreement that the setback is a big difference. Maybe 70 meters is too much, but 12 meters is, I think, just cutting it a little too close for the residents. Like I say, it was a condition on the lot when the owner purchased. So I feel, setting it down to 12 would be detrimental to the residents, despite the mitigation measures.
Any other comments from the committee? Danielle? Oh, sorry. I thought you were moving to raise your hand. Look at that. I feel, again, I feel we're in a bit of a tough spot. I mean, I would agree with the planning staff here recommendation to reduce it. I mean, it is an industrial area. That's the fact. Unfortunately, the area is transitioned. It's not a quiet residential area. There is existing operations across Kelson, as was mentioned. There's noise, light, truck. There's QEW traffic, significant traffic already. I think all the other items have been addressed. I would have encouraged, or have encouraged, the owners to seek, continue talking with the residents around there, especially the ones in the island. I call it the 251 and 255, I think. And to your point, Catherine, I think you're right. The maximum value you're going to get is today. If there's a way to leverage some of that discussion and maybe have a possible discussion with an acquisition now versus 5 years from now. I think either way, if we approve it or not approve it, one party is going to appeal. So I don't think we can spend too much more time talking in circles. We've had this for 2 meetings already. So I'm in favor of the reduction. I think they've addressed it through a lot of site plan issues and other issues. I'm in favor of this, but it's up to the committee to make a motion or not to approve or defer. But I think we're in a bit of a tough spot here either way. Danielle, now you've got your hand up.
Well, I'll make the difficult decision, and I will make a motion then. In hearing the February testimony, taking that into consideration and hearing tonight's testimony, I also agree with Adam. I think the setback of 70 meters and the reduction to 12 is not minor, in my opinion. That 70 meters is part of the exception, was put in for a reason. Whether or not a reduction or relief to that regulation is appropriate, I don't think 70 down to 12 is appropriate. And right there, that fails 2 of the 4 tests under the Planning Act. Therefore, I cannot support that first variance. However, I am supportive of the parking reduction variance. Therefore, my motion, Mr. Chair, would be to deny variance number 1 and to approve variance number 2. So that would be to deny the yard abutting a residential zone reduction and to approve the parking space reduction, with the 3 conditions as set out in the resolution, which I believe is the, sorry, let me just pull up my resolutions again. I apologize. I believe 1 is taxes, that the parking reduction is going to be approved for the warehouse use only. And then actually condition number 3 can be removed because that would no longer apply anymore because we're not approving the reduction to the residential zones in the residential lot.
Okay, seconder on that motion then, which is approve and deny, or sorry, deny and approve in that order. Adam, seconder. Any further discussion on the motion as presented? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So it was, so the motion then was to approve the parking reduction and deny the setback reduction.
With conditions
with
number...
the 2 conditions 1 and 2.
Correct. That is correct.
And
Thank you.
3 removed.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for attending. There is a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. And that's it for this evening. Thank you for attending.
No, unmute. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening,
Right.
Fiona and family.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.